says it is 3 o'clock. It is Wednesday, November the 15th, and this is the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. Madam Clerk, if I could get you to call the roll, please.
Yes, Ms. Christy Offland. Here. Mr. Gary Paytow.
Here.
Mr. Art Graham.
Here.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski. Mr. David McCollum.
Here. Okay, it looks like we have a quorum. First thing is courtesy floor to visitors. Staff report.
Yes, and I'm just, as a courtesy to our CFO, do you want me to go ahead and go into the staff report, or would you like to do the new business section and then the item for discussion first and save staff report for the end?
I thought we were waiting on, no?
I think we're equipped to do both of those items.
Okay, then let's get down to new business.
Okay. All right, we will turn it over to our CFO, Ms. Gossett, for the new business item. This resolution, this is a public works project, and this recommendation comes from Public Works and the administration. And we sent this out to you guys, and I'll let Ashley go into any additional detail or any questions you guys have.
Good afternoon, Ashley Dawson, CFO. So I am not prepared to speak to any details about the dune walkover work. I'll have to defer to the Public Works Director. But I did want to speak to the financial impact component of this. So in the original budget for the year, I believe we had put aside, sorry, I want to make sure you're caught.
There we go.
We had put aside about $1 million for this. And with the additional ad alternates and the contingency, we're exceeding our budget. So we need to fund about $119,000 additional. At this time, all of the fund balance in the Downtown Redevelopment Tax Increment Fund, our trust fund, is assigned, meaning we don't have any unavailable resources to put to this $119,000. And so we're looking for some guidance from the agency about how to kind of approach this. Finance is recommending that we take the funds from the facade grant program because we don't have that, those monies are not assigned to a specific grant already. And it still leaves remaining funds in the facade grant program to continue on with the year. We put forward a couple other options if you didn't want to consider that. But what we would need to do is adopt a budget resolution to basically shift the funding from one project to another. So it would be a net zero for your overall budget. It's just reallocating the resources, which we are allowed to do per state statutes because we've had kind of an economic impact. We had an engineer's estimate and a budget for this project, and it exceeded it. We didn't change the scope or the intent of the work. If we were to change the scope or the intent, we would actually have to sit out a budget cycle before we could make that change. But because this is really through no fault of our planning that it happened, we're allowed to kind of make that adjustment this year. But we wanted to memorialize what the adjustment is through a resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the financial components.
Any questions of Ashley? Okay.
Actually, I would just note that the information that was given to us as part of our agenda and the resolution that was provided along with that, one calls for a 15% contingency, the other one calls for a 10% contingency. That's what's in the resolution is 10%.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if it's truly 15%, we just need to make that correction.
It is 15%.
Okay.
So that is a Scribner's error. So in the resolution should be amended to match what the document, the memo from the Public Works Director states.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Christie?
I would love to know what Heather and Taylor think about taking the money from the facade grant to moving it to here, if you think that's the best option.
Like Ashley stated, we don't have unassigned funds, so we got to take it from somewhere. If I were going to have my preference, it would probably be to push signage further down the road because it is a custom project that will take some time, and there's so much going on right now out in the field that it might take longer than anticipated anyway. like all of our projects seem to be doing these days. But that would just be, my vote, but I don't get a vote, you guys do, so, and I won't speak for Taylor, but
I second that.
she seconds that.
I'm happy to hear your opinion.
Thank you. I agree.
Is there a wish to?
So how do we take it from how can we suggest that it's taken from the signage line item number 10? That's all.
So the resolution is actually left blank. If you'll notice in section 1, it says, decrease the project from the 2024 budget forward. So I would recommend you make a motion for where you want to take the funds from, and then once decided, adopt the resolution.
Question for you, is it possible to kind of move the funds but leave it open, so if towards the end of this fiscal year, if we need to move it back, that we can do that and not have to have an official excuse to do that?
Yes, sir. So at this point in time, we have to officially move the money, but toward the end of the year, if our interest earnings exceed our expectations, if our other projects complete and we don't utilize all the contingency dollars allocated to them, there would be available funds that we could then kind of reappropriate back to the grant program. But at this time, we can't guarantee that that's going to happen, so we have to kind of make this adjustment.
But is that something that we can do on our own? Is that something that has to be kicked up the ladder for city council to us as well?
I would say that you could do that on your own because you've already adopted the budget for the year. This is the plan that you had, and we're asking to amend the plan for these circumstances. And we can talk about it kind of later in the year, probably in the springtime when I'm here to do the assumptions for the 25 budget. That might be a nice time to revisit it because we'll have a better appreciation of where things are going to land. But no, I don't believe that this is something that would have to go on to council already because the original budget stated that these resources would go there. And so if we wanted to restore these resources later in the year, I don't see that you need to have any other formal action to do that.
Well, I can't speak for the rest of the board, so how do we go about changing this resolution to take it from the signage and give itself the flexibility to go back to the grant program if needed if we want?
So what I would suggest doing is make a motion to decide what funding source that you want to use. And then once decided, then I would say we'll fill in the resolution here and then you adopt the resolution with the determined funding source. But I'm not a Robert's Rules of Order expert, so that's just my
That's
thought.
how I
Sounds right
interpret
to
it.
me.
Yeah.
Here,
Actually, for my clarification, would there be adequate funds within just the signage program to make up the difference?
So we set aside a budget for signage this year, but we don't actually know what the actual project looks like because we haven't kind of finished the plans with, it's my understanding that the plans are not finished with the exact signage and the exact location and kind of where we would procure those things from. So right now, it's just a project. And so if we don't move forward with that project this year at all, you have adequate funds. But if you want to move forward with that project, then you probably, depending on how much things cost, might only action a portion of that project this year. So I can't speak to the exact details because I think that's still kind of the formation.
so the only amount that we're actually moving out of the signage fund is the amount that we need for this 15%.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's kind of the way section 1 is written. We're only moving $119,682.41 to dune walkovers from whatever y'all decide amongst
So
yourselves.
that still leaves over 1.2 million in that signage account?
There's 1.485 total.
Okay, 1.3.
1.3, I'm sorry.
It's a 1.485, it says in the signage account. That will pull in this 180.
There's a million.
Improvement plan is tied to the board, the plan, and the city initiatives. The incentive program is not directly tied to any of our other projects, and so that's why finance looked at it as an independent source, because we have the same concern that you do. You know, we've been experiencing over and over again, we have our planning estimates that we put into the CIP plan, but when we get things out to bid and get the responses back, each time